It is the case that with anything we do in life, decisions have consequences. My formative years laid the groundwork for what was to come in 1975. In some cases, good, and in some, maybe not so good. From the time I was a kid, I wanted to be on the radio. Older family members claim from the time I was 9 months old I could read. Now, this all started when they noticed I was particularly attracted to commercials, mainly on television. My brother Walt is the caretaker of family history, and he says about little brother Bob, "You would waddle into the living room, stand in front of the TV and watch the commercials, and then waddle out of the room when the shows came back on." My father explained how he was able to determine my ability to read at such an early age. You would stand up on your playpen when TV commercials came on, point at specific commercials as they were playing, and you would mumble. You couldn't talk then, so it was gibberish, but you seemed to do it with just certain ones. So one day I wrote on a piece of paper 6 or 7 names of products that got your attention. Frigidaire, Kelvinator, Westinghouse, Philco, and so on. I would say to you, "Show me Frigidaire," and you would point to the word Frigidaire. You did it with all of the others, every time, pointing to the word I would say. Now, I could read newspapers when I was 3 years old. Dad and Grandpop would take me to the local bar in blue-collar southwest Baltimore, and they would bet an unsuspecting patron a beer that this little fellow sitting up on the stool could read the headlines. Every time, they got the beer, and I got a Coke. Monday morning, February 10, 1975, in Baltimore, was sunny and cold, and I arrived at the Air Force Induction Center on Elk Ridge Landing Road. The sprawling building covered a full city block and was just a stone's throw from BWI Airport. Sergeant Devora picked me up at the house at 506 Brunswick Street very early that morning and drove me down to the building. Induction into the Air Force was a day-long process. Classes here, an exam there, breaks for lunch, and we didn't finish it all until the afternoon. The plane departed after sundown for Atlanta, and there I transferred to another plane, which landed at San Antonio Airport early that evening. The aircraft was pretty much a charter flight. All of the passengers were headed to basic training. After landing, we all got on a bus that took us to Lackland, and when the doors of that bus opened, we got our first taste of the rude awakening that was to come. The TI, technical instructor, which is the same as the DI, drill instructor in the Army, was Sergeant Bush, James T. Bush. He sized up the 4 lines of raw recruits standing before him and addressed us as girls, ladies, and rainbows. The latter term was applied because we were all in different colors of civilian wear. Most of us were rather stunned and stressed by this sudden turn of events, but some of the recruits were older and didn't bother them much. Like a fellow named Earl Hazelwood. I got to know Earl in the days to come, and we'll bring him into the story at a more crucial time later in the book. But at this juncture, he stood in the front line while Bush was walking from one end to the other, reviewing each arrival with a close-up stare that could melt steel. Now, Earl was a Carolina boy, really easygoing, and nothing much fazed him. So when our new overseer stopped in front of Earl and gave him the stare, Hazelwood returned that gaze with a big toothy grin and replied, "Pleased to meet you, Sarge." That was the first of many times any of us dropped down and did 25, as in push-ups. Earl set the pace, as our group, Flight 162, would make its mark in Lackland lore in the 6 weeks that followed, both for excellence and for notoriety. As all of this was happening, my grandfather, back in Baltimore, was preparing for bed that same night and excitedly told his wife about something he had found that day while reading the Bible. He never got the opportunity to get into details, as the Lord sent the angels to bring him home in his sleep. I could write a book on Robert Thomas Lawhon. I was his namesake, and he was the most godly man I have ever known. Born in 1894, he was not yet 81 when he departed. He would play baseball with the kids in the schoolyard all the way up to his late 70s. Always on the go, always joyous. A great sense of humor and such energy all the way to the end. When Grandpop went home, it was without seeing most of his grandchildren come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Since that time, though, just about every one of us have made that decision to do so.